If you weren't watching Saturday's Manchester City vs Arsenal game closely, you might have missed it. The whole sequence only took a few seconds, but it was symbolic of a larger issue. In the 42nd minute, Kyle Walker overhit a long ball to Riyad Mahrez. Arsenal defender Gabriel held off Mahrez and then played the ball off a pressing Sergio Aguero for an Arsenal throw-in. Most times, the game would continue with zero incident, but this time it was different. Aguero disagreed with the decision and disputed the call with the lineswoman, who was standing right next to the play. As she walked away, he grabbed her by the neck, and she pushed him away. This is how it sounded on Sky Sports.
Often when players go down like that, you get a free kick. Gabriel didn't get one. They've got to throw Arsenal in the end.
I think he might be right, Sergio Aguero. You'll be careful putting his hand on an official.
Especially Sean Matty Ellis.
I think he was already out.
Yeah. I think it was meant kindly, but it is risky.
While it seemed innocuous to some, for so many, the moment stood out. On Twitter, criticisms range from unprofessional to unacceptable. For women working in football, moments like these happen. Personally, it reminded me of an incident 2 years ago at the Ballon d'Or ceremony with Ada Hegerberg.
But on the women's side, there was some controversy when Ada Hegerberg was the first woman to receive the award. She's 23 years old, plays for the Norway national team. So she gets up on stage to receive her award, and the DJ, who was the presenter, Martin Solveig is his name, he asked her a question basically along the lines of, very bluntly, do you twerk, or do you know how to twerk? Which here in America, it's a hip-hop type of dance.
But often these moments aren't captured on camera and in front of millions. More commonly, they're in offices, on football pitches, and in boardrooms. So just how common is gender discrimination in football? How supported are women who suffer from abuse and harassment? Today, we analyze a landmark survey and ask, what are working conditions like for women in football?
The results were not a surprise to us, to be honest.
Ebru Köksal is the chair of Women in Football, a network of professionals working in and around the football industry. Last week, they surveyed thousands of their members about working in the football industry.
We always keep close to our 4,000 member base, and through webinars and through roundtables and through our leadership courses, we're constantly holding the pulse. But this survey, obviously, the results were shocking for us and quite heartbreaking for us.
Before we get into some of the results in more detail, can you just kind of explain why you carried out the survey and what you expected to see?
Over our existence period, we always talked about and called out the need for more diversity and equality and inclusion. But unless you're able to produce some sound statistics, it's sometimes not that easy to convince people as to why equality is necessary, why diversity is important, and why diversity doesn't ensure by itself inclusion and connection. So this survey actually allowed us to, lay bare open what the industry the situation in the industry is.
So let's get into the survey. What were some of the things that you found? What were some of the results?
The obviously good and bad, the positive and the negative were all together. And the headline is 66% of the women faced discrimination, and even a bigger amount felt that they faced obstacles in their careers, 82%. And more important than that, I think 12% of the incidents were only reported. And that's a huge gap between the number of people who firsthand experienced it or witnessed it, but failed to report or were scared to report them.
And just to kind of be clear on some of the parameters of this survey, how many people filled this survey out and what are their jobs and fields kind of within the football industry?
The survey was sent out to our complete member database, which is in excess of 4,000, and a statistically significant number of them filled it out. And it's a wide distribution in terms of their level in their organizations, the type of organization, whether it's a governing body or a community club or a Premier League club or a media outlet or a sports marketing agency. So our definition is quite wide as to who is a woman in football. And name me a position in football, and we have a member who occupies that position. So it's been quite wide. And also almost 18% of the respondents were actually non-UK people.
Oh, interesting. That's very good to know. As you said earlier, 66% of women have experienced gender discrimination in the workplace, and that's been kind of the number that's been most shared. What does gender discrimination mean to you? And, what are some of the common examples that you heard from the respondents?
Well, it could be as simple as some sexist comments at work, but it could be as critical and important as bullying or being passed over for promotions or even losing their jobs because, they are women. So it is definitely a big, wide range. And it's not that easy to dissect the level of discrimination. But even, one comment is too many, right? Everyone should feel safe and feel that they are welcome at any organization, at any level of football, at entry or all the way to the boardroom, on the field or on the side of the field.
One of the things that kind of jumped out to me when I was reading some of the results was that 34% witnessed discrimination, and yet only 12% of incidents were actually reported. What do those numbers tell you? Because to me, they kind of were revealing.
Yes, we were just talking about it this week with someone who has faced significant bullying and discrimination at work. And when she finally gathered the courage to come forward and talk about it to her superiors, she was, first of all, supported by her peers who had witnessed it. And when she reported it, everybody disappeared. Nobody was there to repeat what they had witnessed. And this was really sad for her because she felt that she was not necessarily wholeheartedly supported by her peers. And this is obviously shows that there is still a lot of fear in organizations, and nobody likes whistleblowers or nobody likes people who speak up and challenge discrimination. And people don't want to lose their hard-earned positions or jobs. And especially as a woman, moving up the ladder is always very difficult. You always face some kind of obstacle, and you just don't fight every single battle that comes your way. And this is something, if people believe that they're not going to win, they will not put themselves forward, unfortunately. So this big gap shows that as an industry, we have a lot of work to do to create safe environments for people to feel that they can call out any wrongdoing, they can report discrimination, and also still feel welcome and continue in their current roles.
I don't want to jump to conclusions, but kind of based on what you're saying, it seems to me that there's still like a culture of sexism, not maybe overt, but in terms of it's not challenged. The overall culture of the workplace still has room to go.
Exactly. And this is partly obviously due to football being over decades being seen as predominantly a male industry, whether it's again on the field or on the administration side. Perceptions have started changing, but there are still long-standing prejudices. And unconscious bias is an important part as well. A lot of the times, men simply don't recognize that they're forming these inner circles And women are feeling left out, whether it's within the department or within the workplace. And it could be extremely simple exclusion of an excursion or an after-work drink, or even, sometimes we even joke that you're not even in the same bathroom where you could be talking about something about work, right? So it's very difficult to feel like you're part of that inner circle where you can contribute.
Yeah, so it's maybe not inclusive enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there we still have a long way to go. And sometimes when we talk to male colleagues and male allies and point out some typical examples of discrimination, it's automatically, pushed aside as banter. Oh, come on, this is just, bar talk or banter. Don't take this personally, or this is not really discrimination. But that is not the case, unfortunately.
So me and Gabby were having this conversation. Gabby said, well, I've walked into an office and someone said to me, how many Premier League footballers have you slept with? And that's not acceptable. But at the time, I would have thought, oh, it's just banter, it's fine. What did I expect it was going to be like? Get on with it.
Man, is just like no other workplace.
Really?
I don't think so.
See, I think it is. I think it's the same as a building site. My friends are architects, they work with builders.
Football's
Do you think?
ruthless.
And what's really important is how that's making women feel.
Yeah, I mean, banter is one of the things that you mentioned in the survey as like kind of the prime reasons men will give for some of these comments and whatnot. So I guess the logical kind of follow-up to that is, is there any sort of banter-ish training to like kind of go against that? I mean, how do you fight banter comments?
First of all, many organizations, if they have made diversity and inclusion a priority in their strategic plans and made sure that it's part of every single senior manager's KPI, then obviously the culture shift will be much quicker. And there is a lot of unconscious bias training out there. And creating this kind of new understanding is a very important first step, but it doesn't automatically take away the office culture in a very, very quick manner, unfortunately. But it's really the job of the senior level management and the person at the top to change this tone of voice and to make the organization a more welcoming and a more inclusive one, not only for women, but for any kind of minority.
We're talking about some of the maybe disappointing results of the survey. You said earlier, 82% said that they faced obstacles in their football career. Are there any other ones that we haven't kind of mentioned?
I mean, obstacles, obviously, in the sense that a lot of the times when a new position becomes available, nobody asks the woman, for example, whether they would be interested or not. Referrals are, again, by men referring another man for that position. And there are a lot of preconceptions about female coaches, female referees, female CEOs, female board members. And I've heard so many times female directors sitting on executive or non-executive seats on the boards. If they walk into the boardroom, if they're the only one, they're automatically assumed that they are the service lady and asked to serve coffee or wine. And this is 2020. It's unbelievable that this would still be happening at, top level football. So I think it starts in the end with really looking for the best person for the job and not having any prejudices or preconceived ideas about men can't do this, women can't do that, or, just simply have a blind, if need be, recruitment process or promotion process and have an open mind.
Do you have any personal experiences with any of these challenges, that you found amongst your respondents?
Well, I mean, of course, respondents, but as well as myself also. I worked as a CEO at Galatasaray for many, many years and then became a board member. At some point in time, for a short period, I was the General Secretary of the Turkish Football Federation. And it was always the same question. The first question was not, what is her background, what is her experience, but why do we have a female CEO? So I was very qualified. I had an extremely good education and business experience coming from finance, but that only came later. It was never the first question. It was always after I had to start again, prove myself each time, and then be accepted to stay on. Every time there was a change in presidency or board or management. Our especially leadership course that we've been doing since 2016, as well as these surveys, have revealed so many of these stories. And it's just heartbreaking how actually persistent and how loyal women are, and how much we all love this industry and have put up with so much to remain in the beautiful game and contribute to it. And organizations like us, we provide the connection and allow women to emerge out of their corners and little silos where they think that, okay, this is how the situation or the industry is. I'm just not going to lift my head. I'm going to do my job and, shut my ears to any kind of negative comment, or I'll just accept the obstacles as they are. But when they start talking to each other from different corners of the country, of the world, of the game, then they realize it's the same problems that everybody's having. And those who find the solutions, share it with the others, encourage each other, lift each other, and grow their skill base and knowledge so that they become more and more embedded in the game and also more and more indispensable in the game. Without the female workforce, football in the UK or elsewhere could not have survived or come to this kind of a global industrial level.
Are you a fan of football today? Then why not support the show and sign up to our new Patreon page? You'll get access to bonus episodes, full interviews, and extra content. Just go on Patreon and search Football Today. Now, back to the episode. In your survey release, you celebrated some of the positives, that came with it. Can you explain what some of those were?
Yes. First of all, we've come a long way over the past 2-3 decades that women have started becoming more involved in the industry. And this survey also brings lots of hope about the future. 78% of the women say that they agree or strongly agree that they feel supported by their colleagues in the workplace, which means that inner circle is slowly breaking and opening up for more women to be part of it. And 66% also feel supported by their employer, which again, we always hope that it comes closer and closer to 100%, but that's a significant number as well.
How do you kind of reconcile those numbers with the ones we mentioned before about only 12% were reported? If 12% are reported, that means, there's kind of, as we mentioned before, maybe a culture of fear, if you will. And then obviously we have these stats that say they feel supported, and there seems like a slight conflict, if you will.
It's not really a conflict because many women unfortunately have accepted this and taken it as given that there will be sexism, there will be discrimination, but they will continue, to work in the industry. And unless it becomes unbearably bad, they choose to take it as it is, it seems like. And this should not be the case because every story that we hear simply breaks our heart. And the more we tell these stories out loud, I think we will get more attention of the industry. And we're not just here to call out discrimination. We really, really want to work with all the organizations. And sometimes they just don't know how to approach this problem. And we have a very, very capable board and staff and extended member base that have the expertise in diversity and inclusion. And we are ready to work with the industry, pass on our knowledge, use our expertise to make the industry much more inclusive.
You know, I want to kind of take a step back and look at this kind of in a historical context, because I think it often is forgotten. Women in football was established 13 years ago. How many women worked in football back then? And, you know, has that number grown? I would imagine it probably has.
We unfortunately don't have those numbers about how many people, work, how many women work in football. We can make some guesses, and it's certainly increasing. 12 years ago, 13 years ago, our visionary founders, co-founders were mostly from the media industry at the time. They were sitting in the press boxes all by themselves, and again feeling very lonely and not supported. And they got together, Anna Kessel, Jo Tang, Shelley Alexander, Jackie Oatley, some of the pioneers in the industry, and they decided to collaborate and expand the network and be a support circle for each other. And over the years, we've seen significant growth, but especially in the last year and a half, our membership base doubled. So the numbers are really compelling. Now we are expanding our services to work closer with the decision makers and the organizations. And one of the ideas we have in the upcoming months to launch is a corporate membership package.
Can you describe that a little bit in more detail? What is that?
Well, it's ranging from basically helping out with HR policies from the minute a position becomes available. How can you make your job description, job posting more inclusive? Can you lift some barriers even in the job description? And then how are you encouraging women to apply? Where do you look for them? How do you reach them? Because if you keep doing the same things that you were doing before, you're going to get the same kind of applicants. So how do you grow the talent pool and the applicant base? Once you have a more diverse diverse group of applicants, what is the selection criteria? What is the selection process for shortlisting? Who is going to do the interviewing? Can you set up a diverse panel? Because if there is, a group of white middle-aged men doing the interviews, what is the likelihood that a few diverse candidates will pass through that interview panel? So it's a wholesome process from A to Z. And when you do get that diverse candidate inside the organization, are you giving them a voice? Are you allowing them to contribute and express their opinions? How can you make the senior leadership more inclusive? So we have experts that are part of our board as well as our extended member base that we are collaborating with, and we would like to offer our services to the industry to not only help with the recruitment and HR policies, but also help the women in their organizations to upgrade their skills, and especially on the leadership front for self-discovery, identifying areas of improvement, mentoring, coaching. We want to have a bulletproof talent pipeline.
I was looking back at one of your old surveys, and it said that 61% faced sexism in 2016. Obviously, that's a bit lower than 66%, which have faced discrimination. I don't know if that's a slightly different calculation or how that goes, but how do these numbers in general compare to the past? Are they up? Are they down? I know we've seen in other walks of life to some degree, hate crimes go up, for example, and things like that. Could you just kind of put some of the numbers in context, maybe compared to the 2016 survey or previous ones?
My interpretation is that more get reported or more get talked about or discussed. And even when I look back at my career, between 2000 and 2015, many things that I faced in those days, I didn't necessarily single out as oh, these are happening because I'm a woman. Now, when I look back, it was not just the competitive environment in the football industry, but it was specific to my gender as well. So sometimes people don't even realize or notice that there is, sexism and discrimination. And I think the Me Too movement has helped quite a bit, even though obviously that's a, different level of abuse and discrimination. But people are getting less afraid to talk, but still, obviously, there's a lot of fear in the organizations. So the numbers, I don't think are going up, but more people are recognizing that what's happening to them is actually not acceptable and it is a discrimination.
But I think when you start getting comments based on maybe how you look, maybe on your gender, I think Rinsola actually said the whole get back to the kitchen. That sounds like that can't actually still happen. It does. We still get those sort of comments when we're talking about football. I'm lucky that I've got a support group. So, I get messages online and I look at them and I read them, and you might get 10 really nice messages. You might get one horrible one, and that's the one that you remember. But I've got that support group to talk to and help me get over it, if you like.
I just want to look towards the future a little bit. Something that seems to be quite new or increasingly new is online abuse. And ex-pro Sue Smith recently told the Women's Football Show on Sky that she, has to go get help from a support group to kind of process some of the comments she's getting online. Is that something you asked about in the survey? Is that something you're concerned about?
Well, I've certainly been subject to such abuse online back in 2012 period, 12-13 period after having left the Turkish FA. And it's devastating. Although you probably know deep in your heart that these are trolls and possibly not real people who are deployed to break you down, you still take it extremely personally. I mean, my Twitter account is a closed account because I don't want to deal with and waste time with these kinds of unconstructive comments. So it is a deep concern. And not only for our industry, but I think as a whole, people have become quite heartless, hiding behind, keypads and not necessarily putting forward their correct names or true faces. And this is something that we all need to fight against. But what we're also observing is there's a lot of people who are trying to protect and give morale to those that are subject to these kinds of abuse. So these support groups are forming by themselves. And we do, when we see it, we do report it to, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it's happening. And if it's related to the workplace or to a match, we do it to the club or to FA, whatever the reporting mechanisms are. But I think it should be a collective consciousness of the football fans to, call out these heartless people.
How optimistic are you that conditions for women in the workplace will improve going forward? And, is change happening quick enough?
I'm very optimistic. As I said, I've been in the industry for 20 years, and especially in the past 3-4 years, we've seen lots of progress. And also we're seeing that slowly there's a transition in leadership from the old generation, old guard, towards the millennials and a generation that grew up with more equality embedded in their minds, whether it was in their schools or families, values or cultures. And I think in probably the next decade, we'll see significant changes as the younger generations take over the helm at these leading organizations, whether they're clubs or governing bodies or, the major media and sponsors.
Ebru Köksal is the chair of Women in Football, and you can find more information about their work on their website, www.womeninfootball.co.uk. The music for this episode was provided under the Creative Commons license by Blue Dot Sessions, and you can find more information about those music tracks in our episode show notes. This episode was produced by myself and John McKenzie. I'm Josh Schneider-Weiler, and thanks for listening to Football Today. And before you go, if you're a fan of the show and would like to support us, please sign up to our Patreon page where you'll get access to bonus episodes and extra content. And if you can't spare the cash, please tell a friend instead. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.